That's a great question, and I'm happy that our guest is finally here, and we can ask
Is that
him.
what the music represents?
Yeah, I think that's what the music represents. We still don't have the great technology to be able to add to the visual. Have to do some pyrotechnics, but we do have. Finally, very happy to have with us a member of Israeli Knesset, a member of the Likud party. He will join us right after I play this little intro. And we're going to hear a little bit about the inner workings of Israeli politics. Oh, he jumped in. Hold on, Hanoch, you're jumping in. Let me do a screen
The
share.
Jews saw them all.
Beat them all.
Hold on.
He is now what he always was. All things are mortal but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality?
All right. Hanoch Milvidsky. See, that's the work of a politician. He says he's going to be here at 8 Israel time, and it's 30 minutes late. That's
It's not my fault.
no, of course. Good. That's what a politician would say.
No. You can look at it. You can look it up on TV. It was a vote. We voted on the budget for the end of 2023. We had to rearrange the budget because of the war.
Right.
And had like $10 billion or so. So that was the vote we just did now. So that's why it took so long. Sorry, everybody.
So can you give us good news? Is everything funded?
Yes, for now.
for now. Everything is very precarious in Israel, as you know. This is unusual. We usually don't bring politicians into.
Good for you.
Yeah, we managed to stay above the swamp, as former President Trump
Very
called
sticky
it.
swamp.
Yeah, but with you, I know you, so I feel it's a little different, and plus you also ran into politics on a totally different agenda. So and I think especially now people are probably curious as to what's going on, and also because of how the event from the 7th kind of spilled into the international arena. It's sort of like it affects everyone. It's no longer just a local problem. Not that the problems in Israel were ever truly local, but now it feels like it's really not local. Like it's not like, oh, there's a problem in the Middle East, gas prices are going up. No, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people on the street outside of my house chanting whatever, right? It's a big thing. So actually, I wanted you to tell us about yourself, but we'll hear about yourself throughout the show. Maybe tell us a little bit about, just open a window for us, right? Israeli politics before the 7th and then after the 7th, just to give people a little, what's the climate that was going on in Israeli politics before and after, and along the way you can introduce yourself more, more clearly, like where you're from, what you're doing there. So kind of give us a little picture, paint a picture for us.
I'll talk about the issues and topics, and if you have questions regarding me, just ask and I'll answer them.
Sure.
As unusual as it may be for a politician, I don't like particularly talking about myself. So, the Israeli parliament before October 7th was a place of great controversy, a lot of hate. I can say that hate. It was crazy. Everybody was against everybody. We used to spend here night after night because of votes and all kinds of dirty tricks people were trying to do to each other. It was war regarding everything. The so-called reason was the judicial reform or judicial coup. It depends on what side of the political map in Israel you were. But all hell broke loose, and people started to talk about dividing Israel to two countries. Even maps were drawn by those people, and a lot of very hard words were said. And I was very much anxious that we are basically drifting slowly towards a civil war, towards blood on the streets. That was the feeling I had here. That was the talk on the streets. I had protests under my house twice a week at least. People were shouting to me, you know, to me, they followed my kids. I have two young kids that are, one is in the army now, and the two younger ones were going to school, and one of the protests followed them to school because they have a fascist for a dad. This is what he told them. And I had threats. People jumped and banged, with these signs.
Hanoch, there's always psychopaths. These are crazy people, or these were just normal
No,
citizens that were just
They weren't crazy. They were regular people, family people. Some of them lived next door to me. And this judicial thing got them crazy, but it's not really that. If you look at what it really is, it's all this hate and all these feelings that were like stuffed inside for way too much time, and they just like bursted outside. And it was okay to hate. It was okay to say you hate. It was okay again to be a racist. It was okay for them to shout under my window, your grandfather ran away from Nazi Germany, and you and your friends are bringing us back there. It was okay to threaten my kids. It was okay to be violent. Everything was okay. And October 7th changed all that. As of now, I'm not sure how deep the change is, but, October 6th and October 5th, people were still fighting and debating if to dance in Simchat Torah, in separation, if you keep separation between men and women, where they want to keep separation on the streets, when there's a religious crowd on the street and they want to keep a separation between men and women, is it okay or not okay? And October 7th did like a reset to all of that. And at least parliament-wise, everything changed. It started when we all got together, like we have 120 members of parliament here in Israel, and more than 90 of them got together they opened up like a center to deal with public affairs. How can we help everybody who needed help? And everybody was working together.
I didn't know that. That's amazing, actually.
Yeah, it still exists. And after that, in the committees, when the Knesset started working again, in the committees, you see that most of the time, the majority of the time, you can't tell the difference between people from one party and another party. Everybody thinks pretty much the same. Everybody's working towards the same goal. And there's a lot of
people who previously were fighting are now getting
fighting. They didn't even talk to each other.
And the other 30 that are not part of the 90, they still hold those beliefs.
Yeah, it's some of them are just don't see themselves as working in a lot of crowd. There are the two Arab parties that, of course, have a different view, if you want to call it, about things. And of course, they're not any part of anything that benefits the state of Israel. So, but we still have them as members of parliament here.
Which is weird in and of itself, by the way.
It's crazy. No other country in the world would allow that. That's completely crazy.
Can you imagine, Seth, if there was like a couple of guys from ISIS in the
No, not from ISIS, but saying that, well, ISIS people were oppressed, and if you want to condemn ISIS, you need to condemn the oppression that brought them to do what they're doing right now, and so on and so on.
So that's basically. It seems like I don't want to cut off because it's telling such a nice story, but it's like it sounds like it's like a pass the potato kind of thing. It's like nobody. It's not my responsibility. It's these guys' responsibility. It's not my fault. I'm simply acting out. These guys' oppression, and they're simply acting out the other guys' oppression, and we're just all being.
What are you talking about? The Arab part?
No, in general, no. I think this,
No, it was ideology. People strongly believed in whether they're pro or con the judicial legislation, whether they're pro or con Israel being a Jewish state, or should it be a non-religious civilian state. All of these were on the table, and whether the Jewish street, the Israeli street, can have Jewish features or not. In Sukkot, the protesters against the government went and tore down some Sukkot that were put on parks and streets because they said it was how do you say that, religious
coercion.
Yeah. So they broke down these Sukkot that were put on the street by the municipality and in some cities, because it was religious coercion. People really got crazy about everything, and October 7th changed that. Everybody calmed down a little bit. A lot of people understood that we got into a place that we can never go back to. And they understand, I think, that what happened on October 7th is a result of that place we got to as a people, as a nation. But there's still extremists. Most of them, I regret to say, are on a very particular side, that they're looking for the next kill. They're looking for the blame. They're talking about, well, we're okay now, but the minute we end dealing with Hamas, then we will come and we will deal with you. They're not saying they want to kill us, but they're saying, yes, of course, you should resign. You should be banished from Israel. You will never be able to show your faces. We will go and basically overrun the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, with our hands if we need to, and take these people outside. And very violent talk that is starting to come back again. And it seems that some people, they're a minority, but a very loud minority, a very rich minority that has funding, big funding behind him, that want to bring back that violent talk in order to complete a political move that basically says overthrowing the government, having a new government here, and changing the state of Israel completely. And most of Israelis don't want to be there, but I think it's our job, the majority, the sane majority, to make them feel that it's possible, to make them leave these extremists on the sides where they belong, and not let them take over our entire social conversation.
which is tough because they also have
Very
the
tough.
media working with them, and it's not.
Yeah, because when you talk unity, it's boring. When you're saying, well,
That's
this guy, he's bad, he's to blame, then everybody likes you or everybody hates you. But there's
They can't
traffic.
stop looking. They can't stop looking.
Yeah, but it's traffic. If you say, well, we should learn something, we should never go back to where we were before, we need to strive for unity and so on. Yeah, well.
See, Seth, that's why we don't have millions of followers. That's the problem, Seth. We're talking about the wrong thing here. Hanoch, you and I, we talked, and our whole thing, our whole premise is that when Jews are fighting each other, when there's no unity, when they turn their backs on unity, not just trying to be like everyone, but they actually actively involved in going at each other, something happens. The system, for whatever reason, you could say, and we did talk about many reasons, there's a reaction. There's usually a bad outcome following really quickly. Do you think people are making that connection in Israel, at least?
I think they're starting to make that connection. Again, you can't really talk to anybody now about things that were, in the past. October 7th is very alive here, but if you look at the state that the Israeli society was on October 6th, you can pretty much understand how we got to where we got. And, you can't really show a scientific connection there. You can't relate it to this fact or that fact. But if you look it up in history, you see that whenever we were ready to kill each other, and here in Israel, people were ready to kill each other, then people came from outside and killed us.
Hanoch, is this understood? Is it understood?
It's I think starting to be more and more understood inside. It's very hard for people to admit it publicly, especially if they're public figures, especially if they're people who want to have people think of them as being very rational and so on. But I think inside the feeling, inside the heart, this is something that is starting to shape inside.
It's starting to shape in the, like you feel it bubbling up in the people, that people are starting to feel something.
Yeah,
or
because
just
I say it all the time, and people stopped looking at me like I'm crazy or they don't understand what I want, or where did you come up with this BS?
But it's not.
I'm not getting that anymore.
Is it well known in the nation, though, that all of the tragedies that befell us came after a civil war? It's not known.
No, it's not there yet, but people understand, and they're more and more admitting it publicly that when we are divided from the inside, we are weak on the outside, and our enemies take advantage of that. They are saying that. They are saying that basically hating brings tragedy to the Jewish people. Whenever the Jewish people is very busy in hating each other, then tragedy from the outside comes. I say this today on all the TV channels, and it's accepted. But it's not yet in a place where people say, well, then we have to stop.
Yeah, we got to do something about it.
Whatever we do, we can't let ourselves hate anymore.
Let me ask you.
We're not that yet. People still think that there are principles and things that are worth hating for.
So here's the thing. If you take away the story of why people, right? Oh, judicial reform, or whatever it is. We want to be secular, not religious. Whatever the outside dresses are on it, take those away. I'm wondering if you see or feel that there's this inner impulse in people. It doesn't matter. You could call it judicial reform, you could call it secularism, you could call it whatever, but there's some just inner impulse inside these people that they don't even have control over. And if first of all, I'm wondering if that's what you see, and second of all, if that's true, that there's just this inner impulse in the nation. I don't know, it's 30%, 20%, whatever it is. If there's just some inner impulse, we have to be smart enough to deal with that inner impulse and not the outside clothing about what they're shouting about, right?
Absolutely. It has nothing to do with any reason. The reason doesn't matter. Because what when they started the protest under my house is where we stopped the legislation and went into talks to try to reach a compromise in the president's house. We had a few months where we stopped the legislation and we tried to reach some sort of mutual compromise in order how do we make this judicial reform happen in consent with all the major parties. And nobody was legislating at the time. I actually was appointed as part of the team that was supposed to bring peace. And they started protesting me when that happened, not before. So that is one of the things that makes it very clear that it doesn't really have a reason. It's just something they felt they need to do.
In judo and in other martial arts, the person's attacking you and you take all that, or aikido, you take all that force and you use it. So to just smash against it, it's useless, right? They're going to shout, we're going to shout louder. They're going to punch, we're going to punch harder. But the energy, that impulse is there, regardless. You're trying to make peace, and the energy is still there. It's like you can't keep it down. You know,
can't.
like right. Even so.
If
what do you do with it? If it's a force that keeps like it's a force that just keeps coming out of the ground, what do you do with it?
Well, I study Kabbalah, and that's the only thing that makes me, first of all, look at it a little bit from the outside, understand human nature, where this hate is coming from, and once you understand it, you then understand that you can't really fight it.
So where's the hate coming from?
Okay, hold on. Let's take a little break, and we'll come back after that.
Commercial break?
Yeah, commercial. Well, it's from us. We're the sponsors of ourselves, but we'll do that. Take 2 minutes, a minute and a half, and then we'll back to hear all of that and a few more questions.
I don't think anyone else is doing what we're doing, and and that's exactly it. Nobody can comprehend what we're talking about. Who would even say that anti-Semites have anything valuable to say without saying we're anti-Semitic or we're self-hating Jews? But there's something that everybody's missing in this whole picture, and the reason why the solution is so close is because we're not waiting for anyone else to change. We're not waiting for the laws to be enacted. We're not waiting for a new politician to get elected. The answer is way closer than everybody thinks.
Like us, hit the bell thing on the YouTube so you can get a notification when a new episode is up. Well, this is the Thejewfunction, and let's get back to our guest. Well, we're not waiting for politicians, but we don't mind talking to them. So
but we are also.
So, but okay, put a pin on it before you jump into the Kabbalah thing, which we talk about on our podcast often. I want to just expand the picture a little bit, because I wonder if part of the solution could be the fact that half the Jews in the world live in the U.S. People like Seth, who refused to move to Israel. No, I'm just kidding. And you went you've been to the U.S. just what was that, 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, right? Right before right after
the big rally in Washington.
Right around the rally.
Yeah.
So I wonder where are the Jews in what you felt? Where were the Jews in the U.S. Relative to that? what was going on in Israel? Are they looking at what's happening as purely a political thing, yet another maneuver, and we're just, just playing the game of politics? Or is there something deeper, a deeper sentiment? Did you feel like they were getting what was going on? Or is it like way above their heads?
No. I think that when I came there, I understood that the October 7th thing was a Jewish thing, not an Israeli thing. It affected Jews all over the world. And I met, we met in the United States. It was a sort of a convention of Jewish members of parliament from all over the world. But all of them were anxious. All of them felt very unsafe. All of them reported a huge rise in anti-Semitic accidents, events, not only in the quantity, but they were more violent. People were murdered. Synagogues were shot at. People, I remember this senator that leads the joint bipartisan whatever it is against anti-Semitism, saying that there are a lot of young Jewish people today that thinking about foregoing their Judaism because they see it as an obstacle for them in life, especially when they come to the universities and colleges and see what's happening there. There's a lot of anti-Israeli, anti-Semitic talks from the professors themselves. It's a very, very big deal. And the big rally was more than a support for Israel. They needed a major event for themselves to take the Jewish people back on the streets, to have a say, to show power. It was an inner, that's how I saw it at least, an inner American event that Israel was the reason for, but they really needed it for internal reasons. And how Israel was related to was also completely different, even by the European members of parliament, who had a lot of things that they didn't agree with the way Israel was managing himself and handling and treating the Palestinians and whatever. Now we're talking completely different. They were talking about needing to make Israel stronger, to diverse even investments into Israel from other places. Israel, everybody understands now, I think, how much Israel is important for every Jew who lives wherever he may live. And even in a strong and confident place like the United States, that has all these Jewish men in very big power places, still there's a lot of there's a big sense of anxiety, of basic fear for what's going to happen.
There should be. I mean, look at what happened in France last night and in the Philippines. I mean, do people understand these things? Do they understand that this is?
I got the feeling that they understand it very well, and they are very, very worried about this, and they're trying to see how to deal with it, but they don't really have good tools, because that senator said, well, our work may never be done. And when you hear that, you say, if that's a senator that is in charge of everything the American government is doing against anti-Semitism, saying this, that maybe their job will never be done, then we have a problem.
Hanoch, what is the goal then? Okay, fine. So it wasn't about Israel, it's about the Jews. And you need this event because we need to bring us together. But what? Just to bring us together so we can make it through the dark, scary night? And then what do we do tomorrow? Like, what is the goal here?
For now, it's because everybody is afraid of the wolves outside. People forgot
That's not
about the
that's,
wolves and thought that maybe they're not there anymore. And now everybody, it's very clear that the wolves are there again. I don't think we're still at the place of, well, where are we going with it?
Is anybody
What's next?
presenting some compelling future
Some
beyond
vision. Is
just
there a
making
vision?
it through the dark forest with the wolves?
No, everybody is now basically using the dark forest in order to make a point.
But
Is there room? Hold on, Leo. Is there room to present some compelling future? Or people ready for that? Are they
I
ripe for
think
that?
that this is, I see it as my responsibility as an Israeli member of parliament in these times to present this exact vision.
do you feel, Hanoch, I'm curious, do you feel that Israel, what's happening in Israel, the unity or disunity, the strength of Israel, is more has more influence on the Jews in the U.S., or the Jews in the U.S. have more influence on Israel?
Oof, I don't know. I think that the Jews in Israel, I don't know if I should be saying that, these things, actually. We need to understand and never forget that most Israelis never experienced anti-Semitic events. They know terror, they know all of that, they know wars, but being mistreated because you're a Jew is something that most of them don't have the feeling and don't understand it. The first time I understood what it meant to be a Jew not in Israel was in New York when I ran a coffee shop there. I opened an Israeli chain, Aroma.
Yeah, Roma.
Yeah,
Roma.
I opened it in New York City, which is probably, one of the biggest Jewish cities in the world.
On Houston, right? Was the first branch?
Yeah, Houston and Green. It's closed now, so I'm not doing any advertising.
Don't go there.
And it was an Israeli chain, and there was a big talk about it. And of course, on our opening day, we had a anti-Israeli protest that really very quickly turned out into an anti-Semitic protest. It started in boycott Israel, and within 10 minutes, it continued in kill the Jews. Very, very quickly. And you stand there in a country that I was a foreigner, and you look at that crowd, and they're banging on the windows, and you understand. Or when you understand when you're working in the kitchen with the people you hire, and they make this Jew remark. Oh, you Jews are that and that. Yeah, you Jews are that. And then, of course, it's in a sort of laughter, but it's there. And most experienced Israelis don't understand that. Therefore, they look at what's happening in the United States or other places. Well, if you have problems, you can always come here. Don't bother us with our problem, with your problems. We have our own problems to deal with. But that I think that it's a very kishrei gomlin.
Yeah, mutually beneficial, perhaps, or interdependent. Relationship.
The Jews outside of Israel depend on Israel, and Israel depends very much on the Jews that are living outside of Israel for support, for other things. And the thought that is you can somehow divide it, or a Jew can renounce Israel, it's not gonna help him. And we see from history that even Jews that renounced being Jewish, it didn't help them when they went looking for the Jews.
Yeah, I'm amazed that we didn't really learn the lessons, even the basic lessons. I'm not talking about the big lessons that we're trying to share, but even the small lessons. Like, I have a friend in upstate New York. He said people around him are changing their last names as if that's like, oh, they're never gonna look, in past but the name on the mailbox. Nobody does that. Like weird things like that. I'm just, I'm just gonna say I'm not a Jew. I'm not gonna take off the kippah and the Star of David. I'm gonna take a different route to synagogue, right? I'm gonna go to shul through another, like weird stuff that didn't work before, and yet people. It's funny how primitive we are in relation to this thing, and I wanna.
It's not primitive. I think it's a very natural character of a person to not have to deal with very scary and maybe hurtful truths that he needs to address in his life. And if he has any chance of making himself believe, well, it's not so bad, it's not too bad, maybe it can, of course, if we do something else, maybe it will correct them, and not understand that he's facing something within human nature that you can't change. And it's not because the other people are bad. It's because he's doing something wrong.
Okay, this is a contentious point that we always get to with our guests. I have to say that we've seen more openness to that lately, but I wonder if we're willing to entertain that, and this goes back to what you were saying earlier, and I just want to add like another weight to this, already. If we're going down, we might as well, or maybe start a fire under our butts. Because I saw this two things that are interesting. One, I saw this bit of data that you probably have seen as well from the CEO or the executive director of A View to the Palestinian Media. It's a company that monitors Palestinian media and all that. And he said that 98% of the Palestinians were supportive of the massacre and everything that was going on. And then basically that number, let's just leave it with that number. And I'm saying it again, not as a statement on them, but more of a statement toward us. If we don't have this political partner that we sort of entertained all these years. I don't want to say, go as far as saying deluded ourselves to think that we have a political partner. But let's say they're not there. They're not available for political discussion because they think differently. And in fact, if you expand it even further, you look at the Eastern ideology, Iran and its friends, and then the Western, they're very much at odds. There's not going to be a middle line, right, where they're going to negotiate the length of the skirt or whatever. It's two different worldviews. So the question is, what do you think can be done? And this is maybe where you want to bring other perspectives, and we're open to it. But really, what can be done? It seems like there's aren't that many options. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a plan somewhere.
Was it a Palestinian issue you're talking about?
Palestinian, but also globally. I don't see a happy ending to the Western Muslim clash at large, and also in Israel. I don't see an easy political, kind of like how the IRA was bombing the UK, but they wanted a political solution. They didn't want to destroy, eliminate all the Britons. They were sharing a lot of the same values. It was just about, some land and some rights and some powers and all that. They figured it out. When France invaded Algeria, these guys didn't want them. They pushed them out. They went back to France. They stayed in Algeria. They figured it out. Here and in the world, the world is not going to split in half. You said Israel wanted to split in half. The world is not going to split in half. right? Like they want an entire, an Islamic state. The end game of
You saw the thing in France yesterday or something where they were in Paris chanting against
yeah.
Macron,
This guy
saying
says, Macron, you're nothing. We're coming for you. We're going to conquer Paris. Going to conquer.
in France, in Paris, they have a
Yeah.
big crowd shouting this.
So again, we don't want to, sound like doomsday prophets here, but what we do want to push ourselves to the end of the thought process here. What do you think can be done? Is there a plan, Hanoch? I mean, I'm asking seriously. Is there a plan? Think about it. We'll take a word from our sponsor, which is us again, and then you'll let us know what we're facing. Thejewfunction is really it's a desperate attempt to change something about the rise in anti-Semitism that doesn't seem to go away, and looking at history usually ends with something terrible before we reach relative quiet again. But we don't want to reach something terrible. We want to do it now. So that's why we're doing this podcast. And if you like this, also consider leaving a small contribution on our Patreon channel. Right, we both have day jobs, by the way, so we're not hoping to make money from this. We're hoping to see some change of heart.
Any funds are used to get this out there, to get this to people. We consider this the same way you go out every day to get money to feed your family, put a roof over your head. This is also critically important to our future, to our safety, to a good world, not only for Jews, but for everyone.
Well, this is the Thejewfunction, and let's get back to our guest. Okay, hit us.
Well, radical Islam is not something you can tame. Radical Islam is not something you can deal with or reason with. And you need to understand that. Radical Islam will never tolerate the Westerner, the outsider, the non-Muslim, but not only the non-Muslim, the non-Muslim from the right
Sect.
Yeah. I'm sure that if you're talking about Israel, I'm sure that there is absolutely no chance of any long-term agreement with the Palestinians. In order for us to start thinking about any agreement with the Palestinian people, a generation at least needs to pass, and a generation that will be educated differently than how it's being educated now. Now it's being educated into terror, into the mortar death as something very rise and noble, into thinking that Jews are sons of rats and pigs and so on, and that should be annihilated from this world. And it's a great mitzvah.
It's a great mitzvah, yeah.
For them to kill Jews wherever they can. That terror is something, up high there. These things, as long as they continue to govern the Palestinian society, there's no chance of ever reaching any kind of agreement with them or trusting them by giving them more land or more power or weapons or anything of the kind. I think that Israel needs to have its security in its own hands. It cannot give back any territory that a sovereign state that is not committed to terror will be able to rule, and any Palestinian state is by definition committed to terror. They have a law, basically, that says that any terrorists that is convicted for killing Israelis or Jews is getting a pension from the state. The Hamas terrorists that participated in the October 7th events, their families actually are getting a monthly pension from the Palestinian Authority. So there's no way we're going to give Gaza to them. Any prime minister who's going to try doing something like that will be overruled by the parliament. Absolutely no chance this will ever happen in the near future. There will be no peace with the Palestinians in the near future. They are our enemies, and we need to treat them as our enemies. We need to try and think what we're going to do with their civil lives. We don't want to govern their civil lives, but we can never let them have any mechanism of any sort of security or weapons or whatever. And once Gaza is dealt with and the North Front is dealt with, we're going to have to do something about Judea and Samaria. I'm pretty sure of that. When will things change? When the Israeli people changes, when the Israeli people understand, and we actually were told that by foreign office officials, that we were talking to them about explaining Israel to the outside world and what they need and so on. They told us the more united we are from the inside, the more we believe in that the way that we are going is just, it will be easier for us. It will allow us to explain Israel into the world better. And as long as we have these inner divisions within us, again, we can think differently. We can argue even fiercely. But if we don't understand that there is a line we cannot cross, if we don't understand that we can never live here or anywhere else in the world for that matter, if we don't pick this unity thing and give it a higher degree than anything else, nothing can stand against the unity of the Jewish people. Everything needs to move aside so it doesn't damage the unity of the Jewish people. As long as we don't understand and implement that in our day-to-day life, we have no chance of anything getting better in the... I don't see it happening.
So that's it. So then, is there a way to do that? Is there a way to get the Jewish people to get to hear this message, to accept this message, to feel this message?
I'm sure there is. I cannot afford myself as a Jew, as a father, as a member of the Israeli parliament. I can't afford myself to not think that it's possible. And I need to basically fill my days with thinking and, finding any trick possible to make people understand. Because when you say that to people, nobody opposes you. But when you go down and drill down in them what it really means, then no, they're not willing yet to give things that they value very much, their political opinions, their, I don't know what, their form of religion or whatever, in order to make these necessary concessions. Yeah.
We see that in we all saw videos of the schools in Gaza where they're they're learning as little children to do playing terrorist attacks and taking hostages. Is it possible that we can raise our children, at least in our small country there, that you're a member of the Knesset there? Is it possible that we can raise our children on these principles of that we're one family, on these principles of learning how to be together even above all of our fierce arguments and everything?
Of course, because it's implanted within us, and all we need to do is make people believe that it's possible. Once you make people believe that it's possible, once you make people believe that there are more people like them, thinking the same, wanting that, once they're not afraid to admit that this is what they want, then it will, I think,
is it possible that this will become part of
state? I'm sure it is.
Is it possible that this can become part of the curriculum in schools?
In time, yes.
Didn't you run on this agenda, Hanoch? You had a plan, a big plan. Maybe
yeah,
maybe,
but you know I remember when my first TV interview, I think, when I ran for a place in the Likud lists for
the primaries,
the primary election. I talked about the division in Israeli society, and the host was saying, "What division are you talking about? There's no division. There's arguments, but you know, when it really matters, we know how to come together." You know, I talked to that host like before October 7th, even with all the crazy stuff that was happening here before. And I told her, "You remember that interview? You still think there's no division?" She said, "No, you're right." So again, people understand it now. People feel something inside telling them this is the right way to go. We just, again, need to support that through the media, through whatever we can, say it wherever we can, make more and more people that people look up to, talk about it, reflect on it, you know, have it in the social talk, if you want. I think that's the way to go.
I'm not sure where to go from here. Probably it's a good note to end on. But Seth, do you think? I'm asking you now. Do you think this is something that can start anywhere but in Israel? Can Jews outside of Israel do something like that?
The benefit, I think, that we have in Israel is that we have an army, we have an education system, we have, you know, when you look at a country like Finland or Sweden in general, I know there's problems there now with immigration, for example, maybe Finland not as much, but you know, you have one kind of people, one kind of background, they eat one kind of food, one kind of belief system, so it's easier to come up with policy. You take a country like the US, it's such a mix. You have so many religions, so many colors, so many backgrounds. It's very difficult. I think we do have an opportunity in Israel, although there's a lot of cultures even within the Jews, but it's such a small place. It's such a small population. It seems that we should we should be able to do this. We need a compelling, we said it in our last show, that there's two reasons why a person moves. Either they get kicked in the ass from behind, or there's something very compelling in front of them. So our entire history is full of stories of getting kicked in the ass from behind, and we need something very compelling in front of us. And we also said at the beginning of this episode, it's much more fun and sexy to talk about the fights. It's easy to get ratings when you talk about the fights. We need a way to present our compelling future as something worthwhile, as something that benefits people, as something that can be good for people in a way that people feel something and want to move towards it. Because at some point, probably, you know, the wolf, just like everything else, the wolf, that this dark night that we're in will calm down. at some point. This period that we're in won't last forever, probably, unless we're right into World War III from here, then that's another situation. But if not, this will calm down. Typically, these things are all cyclical. And then what? Do we all just go back to Starbucks or Aroma or whatever when this is over? Or do we have some compelling future?
Hanoch, you mentioned that you study and Kabbalah, and we quote Kabbalists here regularly. In fact, our whole thesis about Jewish unity stands on historic patterns, network science, and quotes from Jewish sages. And apparently, a lot of them speak about it. Maybe that perspective of our sages holds an answer. What did they say? What did you learn? Let's put it this way, that can give us a sense of light.
I learned that there's a force of nature that controls the entire existence of everything we see as reality. This force of nature has the quality of love, and we need to complete and utter love, like a love that is not dependent on anybody loving it back, just like a mother to its kids. And we need to try and make ourselves closer to that quality in every way we can. And the way to do so is by joining up in a society, in groups, and uniting together and fighting and finding this joint connecting point that connects between us and from us to this force of nature we call Creator. And because there's a force, and because the sages tell us that we're walking in a pre-paved path, if you want. We just have to follow what the sages prepared for us, and we'll be okay. And the only reason actually I have for not being terrified at the moment, for not being tired, for not being desperate, for not being disappointed, for being very zealous in uniting the Israeli society, is because I have great belief in that path, in the words of the sages, and in this very special system called the wisdom of Kabbalah.
So exactly on that note, I have a clip from a film that was shot over 10 years ago, documentary, where the teacher, Dr. Leitman, is walking in the Holocaust Memorial in Germany, actually. So it's a small.
I was
clip.
there.
I know you're there. You're not in the video, but I know.
Yeah, I know.
There. So I just want to end with that because it's very stark words. Not many words, but very stark, and they think they kind of frame even more what you were just saying. Let's watch that, and then we'll wrap this up. So short clip, 2 minutes. There you go.
אנחנו מגיעים למצב שהרע עדיין, אתה רואה, עוד לא כל כך מתגלה. אנשים עדיין לא מבינים עד כמה שנמצאים תחת המרבש של האגו שלהם, שהוא לוחץ עליהם ודוחף אותם לכל המצבים הנוראים בלתי נעימים. וכאן זה המאבק. או שאנחנו נגיע להכרת הרע על ידי כאלו מכות, חס ושלום, שגם כן עלולים להתפתח, מי יודע. או שאנחנו כבר נבין שדי, כמו שאומר בעל הסולם, ונגיד לצורותינו די, וזהו, ונעשה משהו שחייבים להגיע להכרת הרע, אבל שנגיע אליו על ידי האור שמחזיר למוטב, שבאור נראה עד כמה שאנחנו רואים, ולא מתוך צרות נכיר שאנחנו כאלה רעים. וחוץ מזה, כמו שהוא כותב, שהכל זה תלוי בכמה שאנחנו מפרסמים חוכמת הקבלה, שיטת התיקון. שאם אנחנו נפרסם אותה, אנחנו נעשה מה שמוטל עלינו, אומות העולם ההפך, יתייחסו אלינו בכבוד, בהערכה, במקום להרגיש שאנחנו לא מבצעים שום דבר ואנחנו חלק שהעולם לא צריך אותו, ופשוט שונאים אותנו מפני שאנחנו לא מבצעים את המוטל עלינו. ככה זה. נקווה שיהיה לנו כוח והרבה מזל לסובב את הרע לטוב. אתה רואה? עוד לא עשינו מה שמוטל עלינו לעשות. נלך.
All right. On that note, I don't know. It's always these talks. You never know where they go, but I'm always happy that we have a chance to for an hour to just talk about where we can go. It's great, and I'm very thankful to Hanoch, who found time. He's still in his office, hasn't had dinner probably, but from at least my knowledge of him, I know he's one politician. He's not one of the psychopaths that we talked about before you came on. He's one of the guys who we can follow with the right vision. His heart is in the right place still. That's what we need, just to collect those with the heart. We're very happy that you came to be here, Hanoch. Thank you for sharing openly everything you shared. And,
thank you guys, really appreciated it, and I enjoyed our talk. It was very I don't know, I think it was meaningful for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Hanoch, for all the work you're doing, and we remind everybody that we're not waiting for somebody to do something. Each of us has a role to play, and each of us now needs to find this place, this work in our heart that we can already start shifting. We're not waiting even for tomorrow. The good future is in our hands, in how we raise our children, and how we relate between us, and how we keep hoping for it, and praying for that good connection between us and that good future for all of us. Thank you, everybody.
that's why we're here. Thejewfunction. Like, follow, subscribe, share. We'll see you next week on our live session. We have a great guest. I won't say the name because I'm not sure, but we'll see you next week. Thank you and good night.